Hello, my name is Bill Griffin. Welcome to the Different Take podcast. And what I'd like to talk about today is the idea that academia and the media have been trying to, the left-wing media, try to label Hitler's Nazi Germany as a right-wing ideology. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So there's a common description of the political spectrum as a left to right horizontal axis. Political scientists talk about other graphical representations of political spectrums. There are circles and grids and even three-dimensional, but that's not the way the rest of the world talks about things. It's left to right. So in the United States, for example, you have two senators. It's most commonly thought of as far left, as Bernie Sanders, far right as Ted Cruz. CNN even did a town hall debate between the two of them a few years ago, and the media often refers to either one of them as Sanders is far left, Cruz is far right. So Sanders stands for limiting free speech to a certain extent, bigger government, much more regulation. One time, said in an interview that he favored the public ownership of utilities, banks, and major industries. So Sanders is kind of scary that you would have the the flow of capital in the hands of the government. But that's the way he thinks. That's his ideology, and he's labeled far left. On the other hand, Ted Cruz liberals may disagree with this, but he says he stands for free speech, smaller government, personal responsibility, free markets, capitalism, and smaller government. Right, both of them. John Kennedy, maybe in the middle. Going back further, Roosevelt, left. And then you get to the figures of the time, Stalin, and everybody calls Stalin far left. There's really not much disagreement about that. Academia and media label Stalin far left, and then for some odd reason they label Hitler far right. Stalin and Hitler, Stalin's Russia and Hitler's Germany were autocratic governments. They employed secret police to stamp out any political opposition. Free speech was not allowed. Freedom of assembly was definitely not allowed. Freedom of the press, freedom of the religion, that was not allowed. The governments controlled the press and they controlled the means of production. The differences between the two are Hitler did not have, or the Nazis did not have the luxury of disrupting their economy entirely to state-owned for a couple of reasons. One is the population was not going to buy into personal property being taken away entirely. And number two is it would be very difficult for them to conquer Europe with a disruption with the actual ownership of factories and so forth and so on. So there is a very interesting video on a YouTube channel by a Scottish gentleman, and the name of the channel is called TIK, and there is a video called I Am a Socialist. It's about 5 hours long, and it refers to Hitler. You're listening to the Different Take podcast, And what we are talking about is historical figures, Hitler, Stalin, and how they fit into the political spectrum of right and left. So there's a video channel called TIK, Scottish gentleman, and he does a very detailed analysis of why Hitler was a socialist. Hitler, he explains this much better than I do, but he said he goes into some detail. Excuse me. That Hitler thought of Jews as capitalists, and capitalist Jews both were evil. Hitler hated capitalism. I think this is fairly clear. He also, this gentleman goes into some detail explaining that they were not dissimilar ideologies, they were competing. Hitler and the Nazis viewed the Soviet Union as a competitor, not as an entirely different ideology. From the left on being compared with Hitler is not good. There's a video of a gentleman named Syed Kamal, who is a British politician. He compared the Nazis to this European socialist, that they were not, they should not be labeled right-wing. And this was in the fall of 2018 in a meeting at the European Parliament plenary. And the leftists that were there went bonkers. There's a good reason. They don't want to be, no one wants to be identified with the horrible, suffering regime of Nazi Germany. But the idea that Hitler is a capitalist is pretty silly. In Nazi Germany, Ludwig von Mises tells us that the property owners were called shop managers of Betriebsführer. I know I butchered that. The government tells these seeming entrepreneurs what and how to produce, at what prices, and from whom to buy, and at what prices, and to whom to sell. The government decrees at what wages laborers should work, and to whom and under what terms the capitalists should entrust their funds. Market exchange is but a sham, as all prices, wages, and interest rates are fixed by the authority. They are prices, wages, and interest rates in appearance only. In fact, they are merely quantitative terms and authoritarian orders determining each citizen's income, consumption, and standard of living. The authority, not the consumers, directs production. The Central Board of Production Management is supreme. All citizens are nothing else but civil servants. This is socialism with the outward appearance of capitalism. Some labels of the capitalist market economy are retained, but they signify here something entirely different from what they mean in the market economy. Hitler did not, there were not free markets in Nazi Germany or in Europe during that time. So the idea that Hitler is far right and Stalin is far left, when their economies really, the big difference was the state had title to property, and in Nazi Germany, the government did not have title, but they directed all aspects of production. The other idea that, or reason that the left-wing academia, presumably Marxist, want to put Hitler on the, or their explanation for claiming that Hitler is far right on the political spectrum is the idea that he was nationalist. This is, there's nationalists that are on the far left around the world throughout history, and there's nationalists that are on the far right. So that really doesn't wash. The bedrock tenets of those that are labeled on the far right, such as Barry Goldwater or Ronald Reagan, were individual liberty, free markets, limited government. It has nothing in common with Nazi Germany. The Nazis controlled what they needed to in order to make war. They had to have public support. The other group that is often used nowadays is, or label, I should say, is the alt-right. So this is from Wikipedia. The alt-right, an abbreviation of alternative right, is a loosely connected far-right white nationalist movement. A largely online phenomenon, the alt-right originated in the United States during the early 2010s before establishing a presence in other countries and declining after 2017. I don't understand that definition because there's still plenty of groups that are labeled alt-right. But back to the quote. The term is ill-defined, having been used in different ways by alt-right members, media commentators, and academics. This is my opinion, but no one ever claims the label of alt-right. The media, very rarely interviews anyone that claims they're of the alt-right. They seem much more, if very small number of people with groups with very little power, and it sort of reminds me of a cult, like the Jim Jones following or the Heaven's Gate following. If you don't know who those are, you can look those up. The big point I want to try to make is that when you're putting Sanders on the left and Ted Cruz on the right, you might put Stalin and Hitler farther on the left, but they're very close together. And the Bernie Sanders people, this isn't, it's the way of the world. That's the way the world is explaining, or the media is explaining. Political commentators, particularly, they explain the left-right political spectrum, and you can't put Hitler over on the right. It just doesn't work. So in closing, the idea that Hitler is far right, the reason the media and academics label him such, and they also label other far right too, and it's for other reasons. It has nothing to do with being intellectually honest or judging history. I am pretty sure that if you disagree with me, you'll let me know. I'd like to know what is wrong about what saying that Hitler is much closer to Stalin, which is far left, than being on the right. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. It's the Different Take podcast with Bill Griffin. Please visit our website and check out the platforms that we're on. And please let me know if you have any comments. Thank you.